I became an entrepreneur over 12 years ago, although back then I never referred to myself as an entrepreneur. In 1 year, I was fired from 5 different jobs, and so I started to work for myself because I had to, and because I felt misunderstood in purpose and passion by my employers. It wasn't until a few years ago when people started referring to me as an entrepreneur that I actually started calling myself one. And since then, I've been really fascinated by this definition of entrepreneur. I mean, like, what is an entrepreneur? So I looked it up, and I asked my friends, and the answer is, I don't know what the definition of an entrepreneur is. I do know why many of us start to work for ourselves. We start to work for ourselves because we feel like outliers to the traditional workforce. We have ideas that don't fit into a mainstream box. And in feeling like outliers, oftentimes we get used to doing things on our own. One article I read referred to us as solopreneurs, and I think this really codifies how many of us working for ourselves feel. Often we are our own accounting department, we're our own marketing department, we're our own janitorial staff, and most likely we're our own cheerleaders in a room full of naysayer family and friends who don't understand what it is we're trying to do. And so for over a decade, this was me, keeping to myself, not really reaching out to my community for support, trying to do things all on my own. But I started noticing something really amazing happening in our women's projects when community became part of the entrepreneurial process. I started noticing that community can actually make you stronger in your own individual efforts. Now, in our women's socioeconomic empowerment projects, or entrepreneurial projects, we work with vulnerable women in countries in need with the goal of empowering them to and through entrepreneurship. And in our women's project in Kenya, most of the women are HIV positive, and they're all mothers. Now, being diagnosed as HIV positive is no longer a death sentence. You take your medication, you live a healthy lifestyle, and you can live a long and fulfilling life. Unfortunately, the stigmatization surrounding being HIV positive is far less progress, particularly in the community where our project is at. People who are HIV positive are unable to get jobs or keep jobs, or they're forced into jobs that nobody else wants. And so these are the circumstances that our women in Kenya are up against. Now, this is one of our Kenyan participants. This is Cypros. And as Cypros describes herself, she is living positive. And I love this because this exactly describes how Cypros is. She's a positive woman living with HIV. Now, Cypros is a 40-year-old mother of 5 children, 1 grandchild, and 21 years ago, she became a widow, forcing her to be the sole breadwinner of her family. And so she joined our project in order to make a better life for herself. Prior to joining our project, Cypros was working really labor-intensive construction work because it was the only job that she could get as a woman who was HIV positive and a widow. And this labor-intensive construction work was beginning to take its toll on her physically, and it was beginning to take its toll on her mentally. And so she joined our project to learn how to do better for herself. And what happened is that by Cypros being around other women who are similarly situated, she was able to find a community that was supportive of her in her own individual efforts. And as a result of her being supported in her individual efforts, she has then been able to reach back into that community and help other women become more successful in their individual efforts as well. And so in looking at all these wonderful things that were happening in our women's projects, I started to reevaluate and take notice of my own situation. Now, a few months ago, I took my daughter to the Redwood Forest in Humboldt County, and I began to see how nature actually incorporates community into its entrepreneurial efforts. Now, redwood trees are some of the oldest, tallest trees in the world. They can grow hundreds of feet high and live for thousands of years. And it looks like they're standing independently on their own. But if you look beneath the surface, you'll see that the roots of the redwood tree actually extend outwards and connect with the other roots of the trees in the forest, creating an interlocking platform system for support. And if you look up into the leaves of the redwood trees, you'll see that the branches extend outwards and connect with the other trees around it, as if they're holding hands. And this provides them with stability in times of high wind and earthquakes. And so these redwood trees that look like they're standing independently on their own are able to reach the heights of success and the longevity of success that they have by relying on their community for support. So the idea that I want to share with you is this: community can actually make you stronger in your own individual efforts. Community is like nutrient-rich soil. You don't need it to sustain, but the addition of community into your individual efforts will make you a stronger and more powerful entrepreneur. Thank you.